The cabin lights stutter as the red-eye flight from Atlanta to Seattle rolls down the runway, and Tamika Jones, a black single mom, 32, collapses into the aisle, her 8-year-old son Jaden sobbing in her arms after Evelyn Pierce, a blonde flight attendant, shoves her from their seats snarling, "You don't belong here." Passengers freeze, stunned, as Evelyn's smirk fades when a voice booms over the intercom, calling out her lie. 5 minutes unravel a nightmare that scars Tamika forever. What twisted truth fueled this chaos? Hey, where are you watching from? If you stand for justice against hate, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more explosive stories exposing the raw fight for what's right. The airplane cabin pulsed with the low hum of engines as Tamika Jones, a 32-year-old nurse with deep brown eyes and a weary but determined stride, guided her 8-year-old son Jaden through the narrow aisle of the red-eye flight from Atlanta to Seattle, her calloused fingers clutching 2 crumpled boarding passes for seats 12A and 12B. A small victory she'd scraped together after months of overtime at the hospital to afford this trip to visit her aging grandmother, a woman whose stories of resilience had shaped Tamika's own steel spine. Jaden, small for his age with a mop of tight curls and a faded Spider-Man backpack slung over one shoulder, shuffled beside her, his sneakers scuffing the carpet as he hummed a tune only he knew. His trust in his mother absolute, despite the exhaustion, tugging at his lids after a long day of travel prep. The air smelled of recycled staleness and faint perfume as passengers jostled past, stowing bags with mechanical efficiency, their murmurs blending into a white noise that Tamika barely registered, her focus laser-sharp on getting settled after a grueling week of 12-hour shifts. She glanced at the passes again, her thumb brushing over the printed numbers, a quiet pride swelling in her chest at the thought of Jaden seeing the Pacific Northwest for the first time, maybe even spotting a whale if luck held, a rare break from their cramped apartment and the endless grind of bills. As they reached row 12, her shoulders eased, the finish line in sight, but then her gaze landed on a man already sprawled across both seats, his polished loafers kicked up on the tray table, a crisp navy suit hugging his broad frame. His salt and pepper hair slicked back with the confidence of someone who never heard no. He was 40-something, maybe 45, with a square jaw and a smirk that didn't flinch as he scrolled through his phone, oblivious or indifferent to the fact that he was in her space, his entitlement radiating like heat off asphalt. Tamika paused, her breath catching, then steadied herself. Years of dealing with dismissive doctors and rude patients hardening her resolve as she cleared her throat, her voice cutting through the cabin's drone with a polite but firm edge. "Excuse me, I think you're in my seats." The man barely flicked his eyes up, his lips curling into something between a sneer and a chuckle as he muttered, "I paid extra for these, sweetheart." His tone thick with condescension, the kind that made her skin prickle, a jab she'd heard too many times before from people who assumed she didn't belong in their world. Jaden shifted closer, his small hand tightening around hers, sensing the shift in her posture as she frowned, her composure still intact but fraying at the edges, and she held up the boarding passes, her fingers steady despite the pulse quickening. In her neck, "I've got 12A and B right here, sir, these are ours." He didn't budge, just shrugged, his eyes drifting back to his screen as if she were a fly buzzing around his steak, and Tamika's chest tightened, a familiar ache blooming where anger met exhaustion, because this wasn't the first time she'd been brushed off like she was invisible, her rights a suggestion rather than a fact. She swallowed it down, keeping her voice level for Jaden's sake, and turned to scan the aisle, her gaze landing on a flight attendant a few rows back, a tall woman with a severe blonde bun and a clipboard clutched like a shield, her navy uniform, crisp as she barked orders at a teenager struggling with an overhead bin. Tamika waved her over, raising her voice just enough to pierce the chatter. "Excuse me, ma'am, I need some help here." And the woman pivoted, her heels clicking with purpose as she strode toward them, her expression already pinched with impatience before she even reached the row. Up close, her name tag gleamed, Evelyn Pierce etched in sharp letters, and her blue eyes flicked over Tamika and Jaden with a quick, dismissive sweep, lingering longer on the man in the suit as if he were the only one worth acknowledging, her lips pressing into a thin line that screamed annoyance. "What seems to be the problem?" Evelyn asked, her tone clipped and sharp like she was scolding a child who'd spilled juice, and Tamika squared her shoulders, holding out the passes again, her words measured but firm. "This gentleman's In my assigned seats 12A and B, I've got the tickets right here to prove it. Evelyn glanced at the passes, her fingers hovering but not taking them, her head tilting slightly as if the effort of looking was a chore. Then she turned to the man, her voice softening into something almost syrupy. "Sir, is this your assigned row?" He didn't even lift his head, just shrugged again, a lazy roll of his shoulders as he mumbled, "I don't know. I just sat down, figured it was fine." His nonchalance a slap that made Tamika's jaw clench, because he knew damn well those weren't his seats, and Evelyn's refusal to call it out was a neon sign flashing bias in her face. She pushed the passes closer, her voice rising a notch, insistent now. "I have my ticket right here, these are mine. I paid for them fair and square." But Evelyn sighed, a dramatic huff that carried the weight of a judge's gavel, her arms crossing as she snapped back, "I'm sorry, but you'll need to find another seat. We're fully booked tonight, no exceptions." Tamika blinked, the words hitting like a punch to the gut, her mind reeling as she processed the absurdity. "But this is my seat. I paid for it. How is that not your problem to fix?" She shot back, her tone still controlled but edged with a fire that made Jaden flinch, his fingers digging into her palm as he whispered, "Mommy, what's happening?" Evelyn straightened, her posture rigid, her eyes narrowing into slits as she barked, "You'll need to move, please. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Her words a wall slamming down, no room for reason, just a cold command that echoed with the unspoken assumption that Tamika was the one out of line. The cabin seemed to shrink, dozens of eyes swiveling toward her, some passengers craning their necks, others pretending not to notice, but she caught the whispers, low and venomous. "Typical," one muttered, "always causing trouble." Another hissed, their voices a chorus of judgment that made her hands tremble, not with fear but with a fury she'd spent years learning to cage. Jaden pressed closer, his backpack slipping as he whimpered again, his small frame shrinking under the weight of strangers' stares, and Tamika's heart thudded, a mix of protective rage and disbelief churning in her gut as she tried one more time. "I'm not making anything hard. I just want the seats I was assigned, that's it." But Evelyn turned away, her blonde bun bobbing as she signaled the conversation was dead, leaving Tamika standing there, passes limp in her hand. Her son's confusion a knife twisting deeper. The man in the suit finally looked up, his smirk widening as he stretched his legs further, claiming the space like a king on a throne, and Tamika felt the air thicken, the weight of dismissal pressing down, not just from him, but from Evelyn, from the passengers, from a system that saw her as less before she even opened her mouth. She'd faced this before, the casual erasure of her worth, but tonight, it burned hotter, sharper, because Jaden was watching, his wide eyes soaking in every second of her humiliation, and she knew he'd carry this moment too, a scar she couldn't shield him from. The engines rumbled louder as the plane taxied, the cabin lights dimming, and Tamika stood frozen, her breath shallow, the boarding passes now a useless shield against the reality crashing in. This wasn't just about seats, it was about power, and she was on the losing end, her dignity stripped bare in front of her son, and a plane full of strangers who'd already decided she didn't matter. Tamika Jones stood rigid in the aisle of the Atlanta to Seattle red-eye, her worn sneakers planted like roots against the shifting tide of the plane's slow taxi. Her boarding passes for seats 12A and 12B, trembling slightly in her grip as the sting of Evelyn Pierce's dismissal still seared her skin. The blonde flight attendant's words, "Find another seat," looping in her mind like a taunt she couldn't shake, while her son Jaden huddled against her leg, his small chest heaving with quiet sniffles, his Spider-Man backpack a crumpled shield against the sea of staring passengers who'd already painted her as the troublemaker. Her pulse hammered, a drumbeat of fury and fear, because this wasn't just about a seat anymore. It was about being erased, about Jaden seeing his mom reduced to nothing by a woman whose sneer said she'd never belong, and that lit a fire in Tamika's gut she couldn't douse, not with her boy's wide, trusting eyes watching every move she made. She sucked in a breath, the recycled air tasting bitter, and squared her shoulders, her nurse's calm cracking as she raised her voice, sharp and steady. "I'm not moving until someone fixes this. Get the captain if you have to. I paid for those seats fair and square." The cabin buzzed, head swiveling, and from 3 rows back a lanky college kid with a scruffy beard and a faded hoodie, Ryan, yanked out his phone, its lens glinting as he pointed it straight at Evelyn, his voice slicing through the murmurs. "This is racist bullshit. You can't just kick her out of her own spot." What was he seeing that others missed? Evelyn flinched, her severe bun tilting as her blue eyes darted to him, a flash of panic breaking her icy mask before she snapped back. "Sir, put that away. This isn't your business." But Ryan kept rolling, his thumbs tapping the screen, and Tamika felt a spark flare in her chest, a tiny lifeline in the chaos as passengers shifted, some nodding, others scowling, their whispers a jagged mix of support and venom. Could one voice really tip the scales? Evelyn's lips tightened, her clipboard slapping against her thigh as she barked into her radio. "Security! We've got a problem in row 12. Need assistance now." Her tone a whip crack that made Jaden flinch, his small hand clutching, Tamika's tighter, and she bent to whisper, "It's okay, baby. We're not done yet." Her words a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. Was she pushing too far for justice? The cabin lights flickered, the plane jolting as it paused on the tarmac, and heads turned as a new figure emerged from the galley. A senior attendant named Gloria Dunn, her graying curls tucked under a cap, her uniform wrinkled but her stride purposeful, her dark eyes sweeping the scene with a quiet authority that hushed the murmurs for a split second. She stopped beside Evelyn, her voice low but firm. "What's going on here?" And Tamika seized the chance, thrusting the passes forward, her tone steady despite the tremor in her hands. "This man's in my seats, 12A and B. I've got proof, but she won't even look at it." Nodding toward Evelyn, whose arms crossed tighter, her smirk twitching as if daring Gloria to side with her. Would this be the moment truth broke through? Gloria took the passes, her fingers brushing the paper as she studied them, her brow furrowing and Tamika's chest loosened, a flood of relief washing over her as she thought, finally, someone's listening. Someone's going to fix this nightmare before it scars Jaden any deeper. Gloria turned to the man in the suit, his smirk still plastered across his square jaw, and asked, "Sir, can I see your boarding pass?" But he just shrugged. "Lost it. But I'm good here." His casual defiance a brick wall, and Tamika's hope teetered, her eyes locked on Gloria, praying for a crack in the chaos. The senior attendant nodded, almost to herself, then stepped away, muttering, "I'll check the manifest, give me a minute." And Tamika exhaled, her knees weak as she squeezed Jaden's shoulder, whispering, "See, baby? We're getting there." Her voice a lifeline she clung to as much as he did. How close was she to winning this fight? Minutes stretched, the cabin humming with restless energy, passengers craning to watch as Gloria returned, her face a mask of calm that didn't quite reach her eyes. And Tamika's heart leapt, expecting victory. But then Gloria's words hit, like a sledgehammer. "There's been a system error. These seats were reassigned to this gentleman due to a glitch. I'm sorry, Ms. Jones. You'll need to take another spot." What had just happened to her rights? The air sucked out of Tamika's lungs, her relief shattering into jagged pieces as Evelyn's smirk bloomed full force, a triumphant glint in her eyes as she waved a hand. "Told you, fully booked, move along now." And the man in the suit stretched his legs wider, his loafers gleaming under the dim lights, claiming her space like a trophy. Tamika's vision blurred, her hands shaking as she gripped Jaden's backpack, the betrayal slicing deeper than Evelyn's initial shove, because Gloria's soft apology didn't mask the lie, didn't erase the fact that they'd chosen him. Over her without a second thought, her proof dismissed like trash. Was this how justice died, quiet and unchallenged? Security loomed closer, 2 burly men in vests stepping into the aisle, their radios crackling as Evelyn pointed. "She's the one causing trouble," and Tamika's stomach twisted, her voice rising. "I'm not the problem, I just want what's mine." But the guards didn't flinch, their faces stone as they gestured toward the back. "Ma'am, let's go. We don't want a scene." Their tone a warning she couldn't dodge. Jaden whimpered, "Mommy, why are they mad?" And Tamika's throat burned, her fight draining as she saw the passengers' stares harden, some muttering, "Just sit down already," others hissing, "Always gotta make it racial." Their words a noose tightening around her resolve. Could she keep standing when everyone wanted her to fall? Ryan kept filming, his phone a silent witness. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. As Tamika grabbed Jaden's hand, her legs heavy as she trudged to a cramped middle seat 5 rows back, sandwiched between a snoring businessman and a teenager blasting music through earbuds, the space a cage that swallowed her pride whole. She settled Jaden beside her, his curls damp with sweat as he curled into her side, and she stared at the seat back, her passes now a useless weight in her lap, the sting of Gloria's error and Evelyn's victory, a wound that pulsed with every breath. The plane lurched forward, engines roaring, and Tamika's jaw clenched, her mind racing because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot, but right now, she was down, her fight smothered by a system that didn't care. Her sons, confusion a mirror to her own seething shame. Hey, what do you think? Should Tamika have kept pushing, or was she smart to back off? Comment 1 if you're pissed she got screwed like this. 2 if you think she dodged worse trouble. Hit like if you're rooting for her to clap back, and subscribe to see how she flips this mess upside down. So, what's brewing behind Evelyn's smug grin? Will Tamika's next move spark a war she can't win? The cabin of the Atlanta to Seattle red-eye settled into a restless hum as the plane climbed through the night sky, its dim lights casting long shadows across the rows where Tamika Jones sat wedged in her reassigned middle seat, her 32-year-old, frame stiff with a fury she couldn't voice. Her son Jaden curled against her side, his Spider-Man backpack tucked under his chin like a lifeline, his soft breaths a fragile calm after the storm of their earlier humiliation. While 5 rows ahead, Evelyn Pierce strutted past seats 12A and 12B, her blonde bun glinting under the overheads, her clipboard clutched tight as if it held the power she'd just wielded to crush Tamika's stand. Tamika's hands rested on her lap, the crumpled boarding passes a silent scream beneath her fingers, her nurse's instincts itching to fix something, anything. But all she could do was stroke Jaden's curls, his trust in her a weight she felt, slipping through her grip with every smug glance Evelyn tossed back, the flight attendant's lips twitching with a victory that burned Tamika's insides raw. The man in the suit, still sprawled across her rightful seats, leaned into Evelyn as she passed, his square jaw tilting close, his voice a low murmur that Tamika couldn't catch, but felt like a dagger aimed her way. And she squinted through the dimness, catching the flicker of familiarity in Evelyn's nod, a secret shared that made her stomach knot tighter than the seatbelt digging into her hips. Who was he to her, and why did that matter now? The plane leveled off, the seatbelt sign chiming off, and passengers stirred, stretching legs and flipping open laptops, but Tamika stayed locked in place, her eyes tracking Evelyn as the attendant slipped into the galley, her heels clicking a rhythm of control that echoed the power she'd stolen from Tamika's grasp, leaving her to stew in the cramped purgatory of row 17, her pride a bruise that throbbed with every jostle from the snoring businessman beside her. Minutes ticked by, the air thick with the stale scent of pretzels and tension, until Evelyn emerged from the galley, a steaming coffee pot in one hand, a stack of cups in the other, her stride deliberate as she moved down the aisle, her gaze locking onto Tamika with a glint that wasn't accidental, a predator sizing up prey, and Tamika's spine stiffened, her instincts screaming danger even as she whispered to Jaden, "Stay close, baby." Her voice a shield she hoped would hold. Evelyn stopped at their row, her lips curling into a thin smile as she leaned over, the pot tilting just enough, and then, with a flick of her wrist, a scalding stream of coffee splashed across Jaden's lap, his scream ripping through the cabin. Like a gunshot, his small body jolting upright as the liquid soaked his jeans, blistering his skin in angry red streaks that Tamika's nurse's eyes clocked instantly as second-degree burns. "Mommy, it hurts," Jaden wailed, his hands flailing, his backpack tumbling to the floor as passengers gasped, heads whipping around, and Tamika lunged forward, her heart slamming against her ribs as she yanked off her scarf, wrapping it around. His arm, her training kicking in even as panic clawed at her throat. "Hold still, baby. I've got you." Her voice steady for him, though her hands shook with a rage she couldn't name. Evelyn stepped back, her face a mask of feigned shock. "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry it slipped." Her tone dripping with a sarcasm that didn't match the gleam in her eyes, and Tamika's head snapped up, her glare cutting through the lie. "You did that on purpose, you saw him there." But Evelyn didn't flinch, instead pivoting to the intercom, her finger jabbing the button as her voice boomed through the cabin. "Attention passengers, we've got a situation. This mother's negligence just caused her child an injury. Please stay calm while I handle it." What kind of twisted game was this? The words landed like a bomb, passengers turning in their seats, their stares sharpening into accusation. One man in a baseball cap muttering, "Control your damn kid," his voice loud enough to carry, while a woman across the aisle hissed, "Some people shouldn't fly." Her tone of venom that sank into Tamika's bones, the cabin shifting from indifference to hostility in a heartbeat, a mob forming around Evelyn's lie. Tamika's hands worked fast, pressing the scarf tighter to cool Jaden's skin, her mind racing as she rummaged through her bag for a water bottle, splashing it over the burns, her nurse's calm a thin veneer over the storm inside, because this wasn't an accident, it was a strike, a retaliation for daring to challenge Evelyn's throne. And now Jaden was paying the price, his sobs a dagger twisting deeper with every hostile glance. The man in the suit, Bradley Pierce, stood now, his 40-something frame towering as he adjusted his tie, his smirk widening as he sauntered toward Evelyn, whispering something that made her nod, a conspiratorial glint passing between them. And Tamika's gut lurched, the pieces clicking. He wasn't just a passenger, he was her cousin, a local politician with a name she'd seen on billboards back home, his power a shadow that stretched far beyond this plane. How deep did their hate run? Evelyn turned back, her voice rising over Jaden's cries. "This is what happens when you don't follow rules. I'll need to report this to child services when we land, ma'am. You're clearly unfit." Her words a whip that lashed Tamika's soul, the threat hanging heavy as passengers nodded, one clapping Bradley on the back like he'd just won a round, their approval a wall closing in. Tamika's breath hitched, her scarf now soaked with Jaden's tears and water. His small face contorted in pain as he whimpered, "Mommy, am I in trouble?" And she pulled him close, her arms a fortress against the chaos. "No, baby, you're perfect. This isn't your fault." Her voice cracking as she glared at Evelyn, the attendant's smugness a mirror to Bradley's, their alliance a weapon forged to break her. The cabin tilted slightly, the plane banking through a pocket of turbulence, and Tamika's mind spun. Her earlier fight for the seats now a faint echo under this new assault, because Evelyn hadn't just humiliated her, she'd attacked her son, turned a mother's love into a crime, and rallied a crowd to cheer it on. The racism a blade sharpened by family ties she couldn't outrun. Bradley leaned against the seat back, his loafers tapping a rhythm of triumph, and Evelyn adjusted her bun, her eyes daring Tamika to push back again, a challenge that promised worse if she did, while Jaden's sobs softened into shudders. His trust in her fraying under the weight of pain she couldn't stop. Tamika's fingers clenched the water bottle, her victory over the seat dispute a ghost now, drowned by the scalding reality of Evelyn's revenge, a calculated cruelty that turned a simple trip into a battlefield. Her son's cries, the collateral, damage in a war she hadn't chosen but couldn't escape. The cabin's hostility a tide pulling her under, as Bradley and Evelyn stood united, their power a storm she'd barely begun to weather. The red-eye flight from Atlanta to Seattle droned through the night, its cabin a cauldron of simmering tension, as Tamika Jones sat hunched over her son Jaden in their cramped middle seat, row 17, her scarf still wrapped around his blistered arm, the faint scent of burnt coffee clinging to his jeans as his whimpers faded into shallow breaths, his small body trembling against her side while she fought to keep her own rage from spilling over, her 32-year-old frame taut with a mother's instinct to protect and a woman's fury at being torn down. 5 rows ahead, Evelyn Pierce paced the aisle, her blonde bun pristine despite the chaos she'd unleashed, her clipboard tapping her thigh like a metronome of control, while Bradley Pierce, her cousin in the stolen seats 12A and 12B, lounged with his polished loafers up, his 40-something smirk a quiet taunt that gnawed at Tamika's resolve, the memory of his whispered plotting with Evelyn a splinter she couldn't pull out. The plane's Wi-Fi hummed faintly, a lifeline Tamika didn't know she'd need, until Ryan, the scruffy college kid from row 14, leaned over his armrest, his phone glowing as he muttered, "This is going live. They can't hide this." "Shit," his fingers flying across the screen as he uploaded the footage of Evelyn's coffee attack, Jaden's screams, and her intercom lie now streaming to thousands online, the cabin oblivious, but the world waking up to the injustice she'd endured. Tamika's chest tightened, a flicker of hope stirring as she caught Ryan's eye, his nod a silent vow, and she murmured to Jaden, "Hang on, baby. People are seeing this." Her voice a thread of strength she barely felt, her nurse's hand steadying his arm while her mind raced with what this could mean. The cabin lights buzzed, passengers dozing or scrolling, until a woman in row 15, her sleek blazer crisp despite the late hour, turned around, her sharp hazel eyes locking onto Tamika with a mix of pity and steel. "I'm Denise, aviation, lawyer, saw the whole thing. We can sue the hell out of this airline." Her words a lifeline tossed into the storm, and Tamika's breath hitched, her head nodding before she could think, "Yes, please. I just want this to stop." Her voice, raw with a desperation she hadn't meant to show. Denise slid a business card across the seat back, her manicured nails glinting. "We've got a case. That video's gold. I'll draft something by morning." And Tamika clutched the card, her fingers tracing its edges like a talisman, a surge of possibility blooming where despair had rooted, because maybe, just maybe, she could turn this nightmare into a fight she'd win, for Jaden, for herself, for every time she'd been dismissed. The plane jolted through a pocket of turbulence, and Ryan's phone pinged, his grin widening. 10,000 views already. Comments are pissed, they're calling her out. His voice a spark that lit Tamika's resolve, her eyes darting to Evelyn, who paused mid-stride, her severe bun tilting as her radio crackled. The captain's voice cutting through. "Ms. Pierce, we've got a PR issue. Apologize to the passenger now." What was shifting under that smug facade? Evelyn's face flushed, her lips pursing as she grabbed the intercom, her tones syrupy with mockery. "Ladies and gentlemen, I regret any misunderstanding with a passenger earlier. My apologies." The words slithering out like a snake shedding skin. And Tamika's jaw tightened, the sarcasm a slap she felt across the cabin. But passengers murmured, some nodding, and Denise whispered, "That's a start. We'll bury her with it." Her confidence, a buoy Tamika clung to. Jaden stirred, his blistered arm twitching as he mumbled, "Mommy, is she sorry?" And Tamika forced a smile. "She has to be now, baby." Her heart swelling with a fragile triumph, because the video, the lawyer, the apology, it felt like justice clawing its way up, a win she could taste after hours of being crushed under Evelyn's heel. The cabin settled, the hum of engines a dull roar, and Tamika leaned back, her shoulders easing for the first time since boarding, her mind spinning with visions of lawsuits and headlines, a reckoning for the woman who'd burned her son and smeared her name, a victory she'd carry back to Atlanta like a trophy for Jaden to see, proof that fighting mattered. But then Bradley stood, his suit crisp as he stormed down the aisle, his square jaw set, his badge flashing in the dim light, a local politician's shield he wielded like a club, and Tamika's stomach dropped, her brief hope curdling as he stopped at her row, his voice booming. "This woman assaulted me earlier, tried to shove me out of my seat." His lie a thunderclap that silenced the cabin, passengers gasping as he pointed at her, his eyes gleaming with a malice she hadn't seen coming. Evelyn nodded, stepping beside him. "I saw it. She's been disruptive since takeoff." Her voice a perfect echo of his, and Tamika's mouth fell open. "That's not true. I never touched you." Her protest drowned by the rising tide of whispers. "She's crazy," one said. "Figures," another sneered, the racism a current pulling her under again. Bradley snapped his fingers and security surged forward, 2 guards from earlier now flanking her, their vests bulging as they grabbed her arms. "Ma'am, you're coming with us!" Their grip iron as Jaden wailed, "Mommy, no!" His small hands reaching as they yanked her up, her scarf falling to the floor, her victory dissolving into a nightmare worse than before. The cabin erupted, passengers cheering Bradley like a hero. "Get her out!" one yelled, while Ryan shouted, "This is bullshit, she didn't do anything." His phone still rolling, but it didn't stop the guards dragging her to the galley, her sneakers squeaking against the carpet, her body twisting to see Jaden, his sobs a blade carving her heart, as Denise called out, "I'll follow, stay calm," her voice fading in the chaos. Evelyn smirked, her bun glinting as she trailed behind, whispering to Bradley, "Told you she'd pay." Their alliance a noose tightening around Tamika's neck, and the guards shoved her into the galley, slamming, The door as Jaden's cries echoed outside. Her triumph flipped into a public shaming that stripped her bare. The video's power now a flicker against the storm of Bradley's lie. His badge a weapon she couldn't dodge. Tamika's wrists ached under the cuffs, her mind reeling as the galley's cold walls closed in, the captain's voice crackling over the radio. "We're handling it." A vague promise that meant nothing as Evelyn's sarcasm and Bradley's fury rewrote her story. The passengers' cheers a chorus of hate she couldn't silence. Her fight for justice now a trap that snapped shut, leaving her son alone, and her name a curse in a cabin that had turned against her. The fleeting taste of victory, a ghost swallowed by a retaliation so swift and cruel it left her gasping for air she couldn't find. The galley of the Atlanta to Seattle red-eye loomed like a steel coffin around Tamika Jones, its flickering fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as she stood cuffed between two security guards, their meaty hands bruising her wrists, her 32-year-old frame trembling not from fear but from a fury that boiled hotter with every sob echoing through the thin door, where her 8-year-old son Jaden sat alone in row 17, his Spider-Man backpack clutched tight as passengers hissed venomous slurs she couldn't shield him from. The aftermath of Bradley Pierce's lie still ringing in her ears, his claim of assault a noose she couldn't slip. Her sneakers squeaked against the linoleum, her scarf lost somewhere in the aisle, and she glared at Evelyn Pierce, the blonde flight attendant hovering near the coffee machine, her severe bun glinting as she adjusted a stack of cups, her lips twitching with a smirk that said she'd won, while Bradley, her cousin, leaned against the counter, his navy suit pristine, his 40-something jaw set with a politician's arrogance that turned Tamika's stomach, his badge a shadow cast over her life since he'd stolen seats 12 and 12 hours ago. The air stank of burnt coffee and betrayal, her nurse's calm shattered as she snapped, "You're lying, I never touched you, let me go to my son." Her voice a blade that cut no one but herself, because Bradley just chuckled, his eyes cold as he slipped a hand into his pocket, pulling out a small plastic baggie, its white powder glinting under the lights, and Tamika's breath froze, her mind racing as he stepped closer, whispering, "You'll regret crossing us, sweetheart." His breath sour with entitlement as he unzipped her purse, tucked under her arm from the scuffle, and dropped the baggie inside, his fingers brushing, her skin like a snake's tongue. What kind of monster framed a mother in front of her child? Evelyn nodded, her voice smooth as she chimed in. "I saw her dealing to passengers earlier. Captain needs to know." Her lie a perfect stitch in Bradley's tapestry, and Tamika's knees buckled. "That's insane you planted that." Her protest swallowed by the guards' grunts as they shoved her against the wall, one yanking the purse open, the baggie tumbling out like a death sentence, their eyes widening with fake shock. "Well, look at that," the taller one growled, his radio crackling as he barked, "Captain, we've got drugs, diverting's our only shot." How could a seat fight spiral into this abyss? The plane tilted, engines groaning as the captain's voice boomed over the intercom. "Folks, we're making an emergency landing in Boise. Stay seated." The words a hammer that splintered Tamika's world, her cuffs biting deeper as she twisted. "Please, my son, he's alone out there." Her plea a desperate echo against the steel. But Evelyn just smirked. "He'll be fine. Child services can sort him out." Her tone a venom that sank into Tamika's bones. The threat. From hours ago now, a promise fulfilled. While Bradley adjusted his tie, his smirk a mirror to hers. Their family bond a weapon honed to destroy her life. The guards dragged her to a corner, uncuffing one wrist to search her, and Tamika's mind spun, her nurse's logic piecing together the trap. This wasn't random, it was revenge, a calculated escalation from Evelyn's coffee burn to a felony frame, her fight for justice now a crime they'd scripted. The racism a tide drowning her pleas as passengers beyond the door cheered, "Lock her up." Their voices a chorus of hate she couldn't silence. Jaden's cries grew fainter, a third guard stepping out to secure him, and Tamika lunged, "Don't touch him!" Her voice cracking as the taller guard slammed her back, her shoulder thudding against a cabinet, pain blooming where hope had died, because they weren't just taking her. They were ripping her son away, his small frame vanishing into the cabin's chaos as the plane descended, its wings slicing through clouds toward Boise, a city she'd never meant to see. Evelyn slipped to the galley's edge, her heels clicking as she radioed. "She's a dealer," confirmed. "Separate the kid." Her words a guillotine dropping, and Bradley leaned close, his loafers tapping. "You should have sat down, Tamika. Now you're nothing." His threat a prophecy she felt in her marrow, the baggy a lie that turned her into a ghost. Her nursing career, her motherhood, her dignity shredded by a family with power she couldn't match. The plane jolted, wheels screeching as it hit the tarmac, and the guards hauled her up, her wrists recuffed, her purse dangling like evidence of a life she'd lost. While beyond the door, Jaden's voice broke through. "Mommy, where are you?" His panic a knife twisting deeper, and Tamika's eyes burned. Tears she refused to let fall as she saw Ryan's phone lens peek through the galley window. His footage her only thread, but it couldn't stop the guard dragging Jaden away. His small hands clawing the air, his backpack bouncing as they pulled him to a separate exit. The cabin erupting in applause for Bradley. "Good job, man," a passenger shouted, their approval a wall she couldn't breach. The plane shuddered to a stop, the galley door swinging open, and Tamika stumbled forward, her sneakers catching on the threshold as the guards pushed her toward an exit ramp. Boise's cold night air slapping her face, her son's cries fading into the distance. The diversion a victory for Evelyn and Bradley, their retaliation a masterstroke that turned her fight into a felony. Her love for Jaden a crime they'd exploit, the racism a chain she couldn't break as the airport lights loomed. A new battlefield where her life hung by a thread they'd already cut. Tamika's chest heaved, her mind a storm of rage and despair. Because this wasn't just about seats or coffee anymore, it was a war. And they'd struck at her heart, leaving her cuffed and alone, Jaden's absence a wound that bled with every step, the Pierce's power a shadow she'd underestimated. Their cruelty a force that promised worse if she dared to fight back. Her false triumph from the video an apology now a cruel joke and a nightmare she couldn't wake from. The galley of the red-eye flight, now grounded in Boise's frigid night, pulsed with a stale chill as Tamika Jones stood pinned between two security guards, their thick fingers uncuffing one wrist for a final search, her 32-year-old body aching from the slam against the cabinet, her sneakers scuffed and slick with sweat. While beyond the thin door, the echo of Jaden's cries from row 17 haunted her, his 8-year-old voice a fading thread ripped away by a third guard who dragged him off the plane, his Spider-Man backpack bouncing in her mind's eye as Bradley Pierce's drug frame tightened its grip. The baggie in her purse a lie she couldn't disprove, not yet. Evelyn Pierce hovered near the galley sink, her blonde bun a beacon of smug control, her heels tapping as she scribbled on her clipboard, her blue eyes flicking to Tamika with a glint of triumph, while Bradley, her cousin, leaned against the counter, his navy suit unruffled, his 40-something smirk a blade that carved deeper with every glance, his whispered threat, "You'll regret crossing us." Now a prophecy unfolding in real time, the politician's badge a shield she couldn't pierce. The air tasted of metal and despair, her nurse's mind racing for an out, because Jaden was gone. Boise's tarmac a battlefield she'd never planned to fight on, and the guards' radios crackled with orders she couldn't hear, their gruff voices debating her fate as she caught a glimpse of Ryan's phone through the galley window, the college kid's lens a lifeline she seized, her free hand slipping a folded napkin from her pocket scribbling, "Livestream this." They planted it, her fingers trembling as she slid it across the counter, praying he'd see it before they hauled her away. The taller guard turned. "What's that?" His growl a warning, and Tamika acted, her training kicking in as she dropped to her knees, her body convulsing in a fake seizure, her arms flailing, her gasps loud and ragged. "Help! I can't breathe!" Her voice a desperate performance that froze the guards, their hands hovering as she thrashed, knocking over a tray of cups, the clatter a distraction that bought her seconds. Her eyes darting to Ryan, who snatched the napkin, his phone tilting, as he muttered, "Holy shit, live now," his thumbs tapping fast, the footage streaming to thousands, Bradley's drug plant and Evelyn's lie spilling across screens she'd never see. The shorter guard lunged, "She's faking," but the taller one hesitated. "Wait, she's hurt." His uncertainty a crack she widened, her convulsions slowing as she gasped, "They framed me. Check the video." Her plea a spark that ignited the cabin beyond, passengers shouting, "What's going on?" Their voices rising as Ryan's livestream hit a nerve, his yell piercing the door. "They set her up, look at this." The phone's glow a beacon that turned whispers into roars, the crowd's anger a wave crashing against the galley walls. Bradley's smirk faltered, his loafers shifting as he barked, "Shut that kid up!" But Evelyn froze, her clipboard slipping as the captain's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got a riot. Uncuff her now." His tone sharp with panic, and Tamika's heart leapt, her wrist springing free as the guards stepped back, their faces sour with defeat, the taller one muttering, "This is a mess," while she staggered, up, her legs wobbly but her spirit surging, because Ryan's stream had flipped the script, the passenger's fury a shield she hadn't expected, their chance of, "Let her out," a lifeline pulling her from the abyss. The galley door swung open and Tamika stumbled into the aisle, her eyes locking onto Jaden, reunited by Denise's quick grab from the exit ramp, his small arms wrapping around her waist. "Mommy, you're back!" His sobs a balm as she hugged him tight, her scarf gone but her resolve iron, the captain rushing forward, his gray hair mussed. "Ms. Jones, I'm so sorry, this shouldn't have happened." His apology a floodgate that washed away the cuffs, the frame, the terror, or so she thought. Her chest heaving with a victory she could taste. The crowd's cheers a roar that drowned Bradley's glare and Evelyn's flinch, Ryan's phone still rolling as Denise shouted, "We've got them, now," her blazer flapping with purpose. The plane's engines whined, prepping to resume its flight, and Tamika sank into her seat, Jaden's head on her lap, her fingers tracing his curls, her mind spinning with relief, because the live stream had saved her, exposed the Pierce's lie, turned a mob against her into one for her, a win she'd cling to after hours of hell, her nursing grit and a kid's phone the keys that broke her free, or so she believed, her breath steadying as the cabin buzzed with a fragile peace, the captain's nod a promise of amends she wanted to trust. But then Evelyn slipped away, her heels silent as she ducked into the cockpit, her fingers brushing a panel Tamika couldn't see, her smirk returning as she tampered with the oxygen system, a sabotage whispered under her breath. "Let's teach them all a lesson," her blue eyes glinting with a vengeance unbowed, the cabin's air still humming as the plane taxied, passengers settling unaware of the trap she'd set. Tamika's triumph a flicker in a storm about to break. The engines roared, the plane lifting off Boise's runway, and Tamika's eyes fluttered shut. Jaden's warmth a anchor, her victory, a fragile shield she didn't know was cracking, because Evelyn's move wasn't surrender, it was escalation, a retaliation that turned her win into a prelude, the oxygen masks dangling useless above, a silent promise of chaos she couldn't predict. The Pierce's hate a force that wouldn't rest, her brief escape a mirage in a war growing darker, deadlier, the cabin a ticking bomb she'd only just begun to fight, her son's safety a thread, now stretched to snap as the plane climbed, its air thinning, her relief a ghost about to choke. The red-eye flight from Atlanta to Seattle, now airborne again after its Boise detour, sliced through the night sky, its cabin a fragile shell of recycled air and flickering lights, as Tamika Jones sat in row 17, her 32-year-old, frame slumped with exhaustion, her son Jaden nestled against her side, his 8-year-old breath shallow but steady, his blistered arm still wrapped in her damp scarf, the faint hum of engines a deceptive calm after her desperate escape from the galley's cuffs, the live stream victory a fleeting glow in her chest as she stroked his curls, his Spider-Man backpack wedged between their knees, a small anchor in a storm she thought she'd weathered. 5 rows ahead, Evelyn Pierce lingered near the galley, her blonde bun a stark silhouette, her heels silent now, her sabotage of the oxygen system a secret ticking above the passengers' heads, while Bradley Pierce, her cousin, sprawled in, seats 12A and 12B, his navy suit creased but his 40-something smirk unshaken, his loafers tapping a rhythm of control Tamika couldn't hear over Jaden's soft snores, the politician's power a shadow she'd barely begun to grasp. The plane climbed, its nose tilting upward, and a faint hiss whispered through the vents, unnoticed by the dozing crowd, their laptops glowing, their murmurs fading, until a woman in row 10 coughed, then another in row 8, sharp, ragged hacks that snapped Tamika's nurse's instincts awake, her eyes darting as oxygen levels plummeted. Evelyn's tampering now a noose tightening around every throat, the masks dangling limp above, useless plastic shells that offered no breath. Jaden stirred. "Mommy, I feel funny." His voice a weak thread, and Tamika's pulse spiked, her hands flying to his face, his skin clammy as she tore open an overhead bin, her training overriding panic, her fingers clawing through blankets and life vests until she found a spare oxygen tank, its green metal cold against her palms. A lifeline she yanked free, twisting the valve as she pressed the mask to Jaden's mouth. "Breathe, baby, slow and deep." Her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around her, passengers gasping, clawing at their own masks, some collapsing into seats, their eyes wide with terror. The cabin a chorus of choking cries she couldn't mute. Denise, the lawyer from row 15, coughed beside her, her blazer askew, and Tamika shoved the tank's second mask into her hands. "Take it. I've got him." Her command a nurse's order that brooked no argument, and Denise nodded, sucking air as Tamika scanned the aisle, her mind racing to save more, her body moving before fear could catch up. The tank's hiss a fragile shield against the suffocating tide, passengers whispering, "She's helping." Their gratitude a flicker. She barely registered, her focus on Jaden's slowing gasps, his color returning. A victory she could feel in her bones. The plane shuddered, its altitude peaking, and Tamika stood, her sneakers gripping the carpet as she dragged the tank forward, offering breaths to a teenager in row 16, then an elderly man in row 18. Their thanks a murmur against the rising panic, her strength a beacon in the dark, the cabin's air thinning to a razor's edge as she thought, "I can do this, I can save them." Her nursing grit a fire that burned through the haze, her son safe, her purpose clear, a hero's moment she'd earned after hours of hell. But then Bradley rose, his square jaw set, his badge glinting as he staggered forward, his voice wild. "She did this. She sabotaged the plane." His accusation a thunderbolt that split the crowd, his finger jabbing at Tamika, his eyes blazing, with a lie that turned her triumph sour, passengers coughing, turning, their fear twisting into rage as he rallied them. "She's dangerous, stop her!" His politician's charm a venom that spread fast, the mob's desperation a spark he fanned into flame. Evelyn nodding from the galley, her smirk a silent cheer, their plan a trap snapping shut around Tamika's courage. The teenager she'd saved lunged. "You bitch!" His fist cracking her jaw, pain exploding as she stumbled, the tank slipping, Jaden screaming, "Mommy, no!" His small hands grabbing her leg, while the elderly man she'd helped swung his cane. "Get her!" His wheeze a betrayal that stung deeper than the blow, the cabin a whirlwind of fists and shouts. "She's killing us!" A woman shrieked, her nails raking Tamika's arm, the gratitude gone, replaced by a lynching fueled by Bradley's words, the racism a current she couldn't swim against. Her heroism flipped into a death sentence in seconds. Tamika ducked, shielding Jaden, her scarf unraveling as she dragged the tank back, her jaw throbbing, blood trickling from her lip, her mind reeling as the mob closed in, their coughs a rhythm of hate, Bradley towering above. "See? She's guilty." His voice a gavel, Evelyn slipping closer, her heels clicking now. "Told you she'd pay." Her whisper a dagger as the plane tilted, its descent a faint hope Tamika couldn't reach. The oxygen tank her only weapon, its hiss fading as the crowd pressed tighter, their fists a storm she couldn't outrun. Ryan shouted from row 14, "Stop, she's saving you." His phone rolling, but the mob didn't hear, their fear deaf to truth, and Denise rasped, "Hold on, Tamika," her mask slipping as she swung at a man, her blazer tearing, a lawyer's fight dwarfed by the chaos. The cabin a battlefield where Tamika's win became her execution. The Pierce's revenge a masterstroke that turned her strength into a noose. Jaden's screams a lifeline she clung to as blows rained down, her body curling over his, the tank clanging against the floor, her survival a flicker snuffed by a crowd they'd turned against her. The air a poison she couldn't cure, the plane a tomb where her fight bled out under Bradley's lie. Evelyn's sabotage, a shadow she couldn't shake. Her heroic stand now a grave dug by hands she'd saved. The cabin of the red-eye flight from Atlanta to Seattle spiraled into a suffocating frenzy, its air thin and rancid as Tamika Jones crouched over her 8-year-old son Jaden in row 17, her 32-year-old body a battered shield, her jaw throbbing from a passenger's fist, her lips split and bleeding. The oxygen tank she'd used to save lives now a dented relic at her feet, its hiss silenced by the mob's fury. Their coughs and shouts a storm fueled by Bradley Pierce's lie. She sabotaged the plane, echoing in her ears as fists rained down, Jaden's screams piercing her soul. "Mommy, stop them!" His small hands clutching her torn scarf, his Spider-Man backpack crushed beneath a stranger's shoe. The chaos a tidal wave she couldn't hold back, The racism of Venom turning her heroism into a death warrant. 5 rows ahead, Bradley towered, his navy suit rumpled but his 40-something smirk unyielding, his badge a beacon rallying the crowd, while Evelyn Pierce lingered near the galley, her blonde bun glinting, her heels poised as she watched the lynching she'd orchestrated, her oxygen sabotage a silent killer now twisted into Tamika's crime. The cabin a crucible where her fight for breath became a noose around her neck. The plane shuddered, descending fast, its engines groaning under the weight of panic, passengers clawing at each other, some collapsing, their gasps a grim rhythm, until a figure pushed through. Gloria Dunn, the senior attendant, her graying, curls wild, her uniform stained with sweat, her dark eyes blazing as she shoved a man aside. "Enough!" Her voice a thunderclap that stunned the mob, her arms yanking Tamika up. "Get back! She's not the enemy!" Her authority a lifeline Tamika grasped, her legs shaking as Gloria dragged her toward the galley, Jaden stumbling behind, his sobs a thread she clung to, the crowd parting with reluctant growls, Bradley's glare cutting through. "You're soft, Gloria," his snarl a warning she ignored. The galley door slammed shut, a steel barrier against the chaos, and Gloria locked it, her breath ragged as she turned to Tamika. "You're safe now, I swear." Her tone softer, her hands uncurling. Tamika's fists, and Tamika slumped against the counter, her nurse's calm shattered. "Why'd you help me?" Her voice a rasp, Jaden curling into her lap, his blistered arm trembling, while Gloria's face crumpled, guilt etching lines deeper than the flight's strain. "I messed up. I lied about the seats. Evelyn made me. But this is too far." Her confession a bombshell that rocked Tamika's core, the system error from hours ago now a crack in the Pierce's wall, a truth she seized. "You'll tell them, right? You'll fix this?" Her plea raw hope flickering as Gloria nodded. "I'll testify. I saw her mess with the oxygen, it's on her." Her promise a rope Tamika grabbed, her spirit surging, because an ally, a witness could turn this nightmare around, could free her from the frame, the cuffs, the mob. Her faith swelling as she hugged Jaden. "We're okay, baby. She's with us." Her words a prayer she believed. The galley a sanctuary where justice felt close. The plane's descent a countdown to redemption she could taste. The cabin quieted beyond the door, passengers coughing less as air trickled back, Ryan's shouts fading. "She's innocent." His phone a distant echo, and Tamika's jaw pulsed, her blood drying as she whispered, "Thank you," to Gloria, her trust a fragile bridge. The senior attendant's nod a vow she clung to, her mind spinning with visions of courts and cameras, Evelyn and Bradley exposed, her son safe, her name cleared, a victory she'd claw from this hell, the live stream, and Gloria's truth her weapons against a system that had crushed her for hours. But Gloria's hand slipped to her pocket, her fingers brushing a tiny recorder, its red light winking as she stepped back. "I've got your rant, Tamika, every word," her voice shifting, a chill creeping in, and Tamika froze, her hope curdling, as Gloria's mask slipped. "You raged against the airline, called it a racist shithole, I taped it." Her betrayal a knife twisting deep, the ally a pawn in a game Tamika hadn't seen. Her earlier outburst in the galley now a trap, a distorted threat Gloria had captured while pretending to save her. Bradley's voice boomed over the intercom. "Attention, we've got a terrorist here, listen to this." His tone a gavel as the recording played. Tamika's furious. "This whole damn airline's against us, I'll burn it down." Echoing through the cabin, twisted from context, her pain a weapon he wielded, passengers gasping, "She's crazy," their fear reigniting, the mob pounding the galley door. "Get her out!" Their roars a tide Gloria had unleashed, her gray curls bobbing as she unlocked the latch. "I had to. They'd ruin me." Her whisper a confession too late, Tamika's trust a ash heap as the door swung wide, hands clawing in, Jaden screaming, "Mommy, no!" His small body pressed to hers, the tank useless now, her victory a mirage shredded by a traitor's play. Bradley's smirk a spotlight from the aisle. "Told you she's dangerous." His lie a crown he wore. Evelyn nodding. "She's done," her heels clicking as the mob surged. Fists raised, the plane landing with a thud, Boise's tarmac a stage for a reckoning Tamika couldn't stop. Gloria's betrayal a chain heavier than cuffs, her fight for survival. Now a scream drowned by a crowd she'd saved. The Pierces, revenge a storm that turned her ally into her executioner. Jaden's cries a heartbeat she'd die to protect, as the galley became a cage she couldn't escape. The galley of the red-eye flight now landed in Boise, thrummed with a feral roar as Tamika Jones braced against the steel counter, her 32-year-old body a battered fortress, her split lip stinging, her jaw pulsing from the mob's blows, her 8-year-old son Jaden clinging to her waist, his blistered arm trembling, his Spider-Man backpack lost in the chaos, the mob's fists pounding the door Gloria Dunn had unlocked, their shouts of "terrorist," a deafening wave sparked by Bradley Pierce's twisted playback of her recorded rant. The senior attendant's betrayal, a fresh wound bleeding into the nightmare, her gray curls vanishing as she slipped away, leaving Tamika to face a crowd she'd saved now turned executioners. The racism afire Evelyn and Bradley stoked with every lie. Their power a noose she couldn't slip. The door buckled, wood splintering under the weight of rage, and Tamika shoved a serving cart forward, her nurse's strength surging as she wedged it against the frame. "Stay back, Jaden." Her voice a whip cracking through his sobs, his small hands gripping her jeans as she piled trays and bins atop the cart, her sneakers sliding on the linoleum, her arms burning. The barricade a fragile shield against the fists and boots hammering closer. Passengers snarling, "She's killing us." Their fear a lie Bradley had planted. Evelyn's oxygen sabotage now her cross to bear. The galley a trap she'd fought to escape once already, its walls closing tighter with every thud. Jaden whimpered, "Mommy, they're mad." His curls, damp with sweat. And Tamika knelt. "We're tougher than them, baby." Her words a steel thread she wove for him, her eyes darting as the cart rocked, a man's arm breaking through. "Get her!" His growl a death knell, but then a crash split the air, glass shattering from row 14. Ryan's voice slicing through. "I've got air." The college kid smashing a window vent, his scruffy beard streaked with grime as he yanked it wide. Cold Boise wind rushing in, the cabin gasping as oxygen flooded back, passengers coughing, collapsing, their fury stalling. Tamika's barricade holding just long enough, her chest heaving as she peeked through the galley window. Ryan's phone, still rolling, his shout, "She's innocent, you idiots!" A lifeline she couldn't reach. The mob's roar softening into groans, her survival a flicker she clutched. Jaden's breaths easing against her side. The tank she'd dropped now a distant memory. Her stand of victory she thought she'd won. The plane shuddered, its engine silent on the tarmac, and the captain burst through the aisle. "Stand down, everyone." His gray hair wild, his voice cutting the chaos as he shoved past Bradley, who sneered, "She's a terrorist, listen to her." His badge glinting, but the captain waved him off. "We're sorting this, she's clear." His nod to Tamika a fragile reprieve as he unlocked the galley, her cart tumbling aside, her legs wobbling as she stepped out. Jaden in her arms, her scarf gone, her face bloodied, the crowd parting with reluctant glares, Ryan rushing forward. "You're a badass, Tamika!" His grin a spark, Denise limping behind, her blazer torn. "We've got this on tape, you're free." Her lawyers steal a promise Tamika seized, her knees nearly buckling as she sank into row 17, Jaden's head on her shoulder, her mind spinning with a wind she could feel, the air clearing, the mob's hate fading. Boise's runway lights a dawn she'd survived, or so she believed. Her nurse's grit and Ryan's vent, a miracle that broke the Pierce's grip, her son safe, her name a whisper of hope she'd reclaim. But then sirens wailed, red and blue flashing through the windows, police swarming the plane, their boots stomping as they shoved past passengers, guns drawn. "Tamika Jones, hands up!" Their voices a wall crashing down, her victory dissolving, as Bradley smirked from the aisle. "She's a terrorist, I told you." His lie a crown he wore, Evelyn nodding. "Check the logs, she tampered with everything." Her bun pristine as she handed over falsified papers, the captain's protest, drowned by the cops' shouts, "Move now!" Their grips yanking Tamika up, her arms wrenching from Jaden, his scream, "Mommy, no!" A knife through her heart as they cuffed her again, her sneakers dragging as they hauled her toward the exit, Ryan yelling, "This is wrong!" His phone, rolling, Denise scrambling. "I'll fight this." Her voice fading, the cabin watching in silence now. their earlier rage a ghost that left her alone. A social worker stepped in, her clipboard crisp. "We're taking the boy, foster care, pending investigation." Her tone flat as she pried Jaden's hands away, his wails echoing down the ramp. "I want mommy," his small frame vanishing into the night. Tamika's pleas. "He's mine, don't do this." A howl swallowed by the wind, the police shoving her into a van, her wrists bleeding under the cuffs. Bradley's grin a spotlight from the planes. Door. "You're done, Tamika." His threat a vow, Evelyn beside him. She'll never see him again. Her whisper a seal on the frame, the logs a lie that painted her a monster, her barricade, her fight, her survival now a chain dragging. Her down, the racism a system she couldn't crack, Jaden's absence a void that broke her. Her win a mirage in a war she'd lost, the van's doors slamming, Boise's cold swallowing her whole, the Pierce's retaliation a hammer that smashed her life to dust, her son a memory she'd kill, to hold. The police a wall she couldn't climb, her breaking point a cliff she'd fallen from. The fight she'd waged now a scream in a silence she couldn't pierce. The plane a tomb where her hope bled out, the terror a shadow she'd carry. Alone, the Boise airport's holding cell reeked of bleach and despair as Tamika Jones sat on a cold bench, her 32-year-old frame bruised and bloodied, her wrists raw from cuffs, her split lip crusted over, her jaw a throbbing knot from the mob's blows, her 8-year-old son Jaden a ghost in her arms, his cries still ringing from the tarmac where a social worker had torn him away, his Spider-Man backpack a memory swallowed by foster care. The police van slam a coffin lid on her life, Bradley Pierce's terrorist frame, and Evelyn's falsified logs, a noose she couldn't shake. The racism a wall that had crushed her. Fight into dust, her nurse's resolve a flicker in a storm that refused to break. Hours bled into dawn, Boise's gray light seeping through a barred window, her sneakers scuffed and silent as she replayed the flight, the seats, the coffee, the oxygen, the betrayal. Her mind a battlefield where Jaden's mommy, no, looped, like a wound she couldn't stitch, until a sharp rap jolted her, Denise bursting in, her blazer torn but her hazel eyes fierce. "We're getting you out, Tamika. I've got a team." Her voice a lifeline Tamika seized, her legs trembling. As she stood, "Jaden, where's my boy?" Her rasp a plea, and Denise gripped her arm. "We'll find him. First we fight this." Her lawyers steal a promise that pulled Tamika from the abyss, the cell door swinging wide as cops grumbled. Arraignments now. Their glares, a shadow she ignored, her steps unsteady but driven. The airport a blur as they rushed her to a makeshift courtroom, a drab room with peeling paint and a judge's bench. Her last stand a gamble she'd take for her son. The arraignment buzzed, reporters crowding the hall, Ryan slipping in, his phone rolling. "Got every second, Tamika? You're viral." His scruffy beard framing a grin she clung to, Denise rallying a legal trio, their briefcases snapping open. As they piled evidence, his footage, passenger statements, Gloria's absence a gap they'd fill. Tamika's heart pounding as she sat, her hands free but shaking. Jaden's absence a void that fueled her. The judge, a wiry man with tired eyes, banging his gavel. "Terrorism, Miss Jones, how do you plead?" His voice a drum, and Denise shot up. "Not guilty, Your Honor, this is a setup." Her tone slicing through Bradley's smirk from the prosecution table, his navy suit crisp, Evelyn beside him, her blonde bun a crown of lies. "She's a danger." "We've got proof," his badge glinting as he waved the logs. Tamika's rant a distorted echo they played again. "I'll burn it down." Her voice twisted, the courtroom gasping, but Denise countered, "That's out of context, here's the real story." Ryan's video blasting across a screen, the drug plant, the oxygen chaos, the mob's turn, the judge's brow furrowing. As murmurs rose, Tamika's chest tightening, hope a fragile thread she wove with every frame. Her son's face her anchor, the fight she'd lost now a battle she'd win. Or so she prayed. The hours stretched, Denise tearing into the logs. Forged, timestamps don't match. Her team's expert nodding, Ryan's footage looping, passengers testifying. "She saved us." Their voices a chorus that drowned Bradley's sneer. Evelyn's flinch, the judge scribbling then banging. "Charges dropped, Ms. Jones, you're clear." His ruling a thunderclap, Tamika's tears breaking as she leapt up, Denise hugging her. "We did it!" Her blazer flapping, Ryan whooping, "Knew it!" His phone dropping as she ran to the hall, Jaden rushing from a side room, "Mommy!" His small arms a lifeline she'd died for, his curls damp as she lifted him. "I've got you, baby." Her voice a sob. The courtroom victory a dawn she'd clawed from hell. The reporters snapping, the cops slinking back, Bradley's glare, a storm she'd weathered, Evelyn's bun tilting as she whispered to him, "This isn't over." Their hate a shadow she'd beaten, her son in her arms, her name cleared, a win she'd carry forever, or so she thought. Her nurse's grit and a lawyer's fire her salvation, the plane's nightmare a scar she'd wear with pride, Boise a battlefield she'd conquered, Jaden's warmth a shield against the dark, her last stand a triumph she'd savor, the crowd's cheers a balm on wounds that still bled. Hours later, a motel room buzzed with relief. Tamika tucking Jaden into a lumpy bed, his blistered arm bandaged, his eyes fluttering shut, Denise plotting, "We'll sue, take the airline down," her voice a vow, when a crash shattered the night, glass exploding inward, flames roaring as a firebomb tore through the window. Tamika diving over Jaden. "Get down!" Her scream a reflex as heat licked her skin. The room a furnace. Bradley's smirk a ghost in the blaze, his bribe to a juror leaking her address online. A hate group's torch now a retaliation she couldn't dodge, her victory a spark that lit this inferno, the motel's walls cracking as she scooped Jaden up, his wails piercing smoke. "Mommy, it's hot!" Her arms burning as she kicked the door, staggering into the lot, coughing ash, her sneakers melting, the flames a beast chasing her win. Denise shouting, "Run!" Her blazers singed as they fled, sirens wailing, the fire a war cry from a man who wouldn't quit, his power a network she'd underestimated. Evelyn's whisper a prophecy fulfilled, the courtroom a hollow shield against a hate that struck harder, Tamika's lungs searing, Jaden's weight a lifeline she'd never drop, the motel a pyre where her triumph burned, Boise's night a hell she'd escaped only to face again, the Pierce's revenge a blaze that turned her stand into ashes, her son's safety a thread snapping in the heat, her fight a scream swallowed by smoke she couldn't outrun, the racism a flame that fed on her every win, her last stand a victory, now a grave she'd crawl from, the firebomb a blow that promised worse if she dared to rise. The Boise night blazed with the motel's inferno as Tamika Jones stumbled through choking smoke, her 32-year-old arms locked around her 8-year-old son Jaden, his blistered body trembling, his curls matted with ash, his Spider-Man backpack a charred memory lost to the firebomb that had shattered their fragile victory, her sneakers sticking to melted asphalt, her lungs raw from coughing, the flames a roaring beast Bradley Pierce had unleashed, his juror bribe a spark that turned her courtroom win into a hate group's torch, the racism a furnace she couldn't extinguish, Jaden's wails, "Mommy, it hurts!" A dagger in her chest as she staggered into the parking lot, Denise beside her, her blazer singed, "Keep moving, Tamika!" Her lawyer's voice a lifeline through the haze, sirens wailing as fire trucks screeched in, their hoses a futile spray against a war she'd never signed up for, her triumph a pile of embers she'd barely escaped, Bradley's smirk a ghost. In the heat, Evelyn's whisper a curse she couldn't outrun. A pickup roared up, Denise's paralegal at the wheel. "Get in!" His shout cutting through the crackle, and Tamika dove into the cab, Jaden on her lap, her scarf gone, her split lip bleeding anew as they peeled out, the motel shrinking in the rear view, Boise's cold swallowing the blaze, her heart pounding, as Denise panted. "Safe house 30 miles out, we'll regroup." Her hazel eyes steel despite the soot streaking her face, Tamika nodding. "They won't stop, will they?" Her rasp a truth she felt in her bones. Jaden's shivers a weight she'd carry forever, the firebomb a blow that turned her last stand into a hunted run, the Pierce's power a storm she'd underestimated, her victory a flicker they'd vowed to snuff. The safe house loomed, a squat cabin off a dirt road, its windows dark, its walls weathered, and Tamika settled Jaden on a cot, his small frame curling under a scratchy blanket, her nurse's hands bandaging his burns with a kit. Denise tossed her, "We're suing national scale," the lawyer plotting as Ryan burst in, his scruffy beard wild, his phone glowing. "Tamika, you're live in 10. His grin a spark she seized, her legs shaky as she stood. "Let's do it." Her voice a blade honed by hours of hell, the cabin's dim light a stage where she'd fight back, the fire, A fuel she'd turn against them. Jaden's safety her war cry. The Pierces hate a target she'd hit with every breath. Ryan set up, his lens framing her. Go! His nod a cue, and Tamika spoke, her split lip quivering. I'm Tamika Jones, a mom, a nurse, and they tried to kill me. Bradley Pierce, Evelyn Pierce, the airline. They framed me, burned my son, took everything, but I'm still here. Her words a torrent, the live stream surging to millions. Her story spilling. The seats, the coffee, the drugs, the oxygen, the mob, the fire. Every scar a testament. Jaden's soft snores behind her, a fire in her gut. Denise whispering, keep going. Her blazer patched as Tamika raged. They wanted me silent, but I won't be. Not for my boy, not for anyone. Her tears a flood that broke the dam. Viewers typing, justice for Tamika. Their fury a wave crashing online. The airline stock tanking as calls flooded. Fire her! A chorus she felt in her marrow. Her voice a weapon that shook Boise, Seattle, Atlanta. The nation watching a mother they couldn't ignore. Her, reckoning a roar that toppled Evelyn's smug reign. The blonde attendant sacked by morning. Her bun a memory as headlines screamed. Flight scandal exposed. Tamika's win a beacon she thought she'd hold. Jaden's hand in hers a prize she'd die for. The cabin a fortress where she'd turned ash into power. The Pierces storm a shadow she'd shattered, or so she believed. Her live stream a sword that cut deeper than their fire. Her fight a flame they couldn't douse. The safe house a victory she'd carved from ruin. Her son's breath a rhythm she'd guard with her life. The nation's eyes a shield she'd wield against a hate that wouldn't quit. Hours ticked, dawn breaking over the cabin. Tamika sipping water, her throat raw. Denise drafting suits. We've got them. Her grin a promise when boots thumped outside, doors crashing as police stormed in. Tamika Jones, you're under arrest. Their guns glinting, her heart sinking as Bradley strode behind. His navy suit pristine, his 40-something smirk a crown. She kidnapped her own kid. His lie a thunderbolt, forged custody papers waved in his hand. Evelyn reinstated beside him, her bun back. He's not hers anymore. Her whisper a seal, Tamika's scream. No, he's mine. A howl as they yanked Jaden from the cot, his wails. Mommy, help! A knife through her soul, her arms pinned as cuffs snapped. On her sneakers kicking air, Denise shouting, this is illegal! Her blazer flapping, Ryan filming, they're lying! His phone a futile flare, the cops dragging Tamika out, Jaden's small frame vanishing into a cruiser, Bradley's grin a spotlight. Told you I'd win, his threat a vow. Evelyn nodding. She's finished, her heels clicking as the safe house emptied, the live stream cut, millions watching a win dissolve. The airlines backtrack a mirage. Tamika's triumph a trap. Bradley's pull a web she'd missed. The custody papers a forgery that stole her son. Her fight a scream swallowed by a system she'd rocked but couldn't break. The racism a chain that turned her voice into a crime. Jaden's absence a void that crushed her. The cabin a hollow shell where her reckoning faltered. The Pierces. Retaliation a masterstroke that turned her national cry into a cage. Her wrists bleeding under steel. Boise's dawn a dusk she couldn't escape. Her son a heartbeat she'd lost. The war a cliff she'd climbed only to fall. The live streams echo a ghost in a silence she couldn't pierce. Her final stand a victory. Now a grave they'd dug deeper. The fight she'd waged a flame flickering out as Bradley and Evelyn stood tall. Their power a storm she'd defied but couldn't defeat. Not yet. The Boise police station's holding cell swallowed Tamika Jones in its gray gloom. Her 32-year-old body slumped on a metal bench. Her wrists chafed raw under cuffs. Her split lip a crusty ache. Her jaw a dull throb from a mob's fists. Days ago, her 8-year-old son Jaden a stolen heartbeat. His cries echoing from the safe house raid where Bradley Pierce's forged custody papers had ripped him away. His blistered arm and lost Spider-Man backpack a void she couldn't fill. The livestream's triumph a bitter ash in her throat. Her nurse's grit a ember buried under a war she'd fought and lost. The racism a tide that had drowned her every stand. Bradley's smirk and Evelyn's bun a haunting duo that turned her fight into a cage. Boise's cold seeping through the bars. Her safe house reckoning a mirage crushed by a system she'd shaken but couldn't break. Jaden's absence a wound bleeding her dry. Her voice a scream silenced by steel walls she couldn't climb. Hours crawled, her sneakers scuffed and still, her mind replaying the flight, the fire, the frame. A nightmare spun from seats 12A and 12B, until a clatter jolted her. Ryan bursting in, his scruffy beard wild, his phone clutched like a grenade. "Tamika, I've got it." His voice a spark that lit her haze. Denise beside him, her blazer patched. "We've flipped this, listen." Her hazel eyes blazing as Tamika staggered up. "What's happening?" Her rasp a thread. Ryan grinning. "Bradley's a fugitive, embezzlement millions. Evelyn's in it too. The plane was their cash grab." His bombshell a thunderclap, her pulse spiking as he swiped his screen, files spilling out, bank records, warrants, a paper trail he'd hacked from a tip. The Pierce's empire, a house of cards she'd never seen. Her fight a pawn in their scam, the drug plant, the oxygen sabotage, the firebomb, a desperate cover to flee with stolen funds stashed in the galley, her name a scapegoat they'd pinned. To escape scrutiny, the revelation a quake that rocked her core, Jaden's theft a distraction she'd paid for in blood and tears. Denise seized it. "Feds are on this, we're clear." Her lawyers steal a blade cutting through and Tamika's knees wobbled. "Jaden?" Her plea a prayer, Ryan nodding. "They've got him, he's safe." His words a flood breaking. Her damn. The cell door swinging wide as agents stormed in. "Ms. Jones, you're free." Their vests bulky, their faces stern but kind. Her cuffs clanking off, her arms empty but reaching. The station a blur as they rushed her out. Boise's dawn a glare she squinted through. A cruiser peeling away with Bradley and Evelyn, nabbed mid-flight on their next scheme. A private jet grounded in Idaho. Their navy suit and blonde bun cuffed in sync. His badge a joke, her clipboard useless. The feds sting a net she'd sparked. Her live stream a flare that lit their crimes. The nation watching a mother's win. The airline crumbling. "We're sorry." Their statement a whimper she ignored. Her fight a fire that burned their lies to ash. Jaden's small frame racing from a van. "Mommy!" His arms a lifeline she'd clawed from hell. Her tears soaking his curls as she lifted him. "I've got you, baby." Her voice a sob. The courtroom, the fire, the raid a scar she'd wear. The Pierce's fall a victory she'd carved. Her, nurse's hands trembling as she held him. Boise a battlefield she'd conquered. The racism a chain she'd snapped, or so she thought. Her son's warmth a shield against a war she'd won. The feds' nods a justice she'd forced. Her name a beacon cleared of every lie. The flight a tomb she'd buried them in. Her reckoning, a dawn she'd seized. Millions cheering a mom they'd wronged. Her fight a flame that lit the dark. The safe house raid a memory she'd outrun. Jaden's breath a rhythm she'd guard forever. The end a triumph she'd never dreamed, or so it seemed. Her scars a map of a war she'd survived. The Pierce's cuffs a crown she'd toppled. Her son her world reclaimed. The silence a peace she'd earned, until a shadow flickered. Gloria Dunn's gray curls a ghost in her mind. The ally who'd taped her rant. Her betrayal a thread unresolved. And Ryan's phone pinged. "Wait, Tamika," his voice dropping. "Gloria's gone. Took the cash." His screen flashing a bank alert. The stolen funds vanished with her. The senior attendant's mole roll a final twist. Her testimony a lie that hid her cut. The Pierce's pawn now free with millions. Tamika's jaw tightening. "She played us all." Her whisper a chill. Jaden's hand in hers a vow unbroken. The victory hers, but the scar deeper. Gloria's escape a sting she couldn't chase. The feds shrugging. She's off grid. Their search a footnote. Boise's air a taste of triumph and treachery. Her fight a blaze that won her son but lost a shadow. The live stream's echo. A justice half complete. Bradley and Evelyn jailed. Their greed a grave she'd dug. But Gloria's flight a wound that lingered. Her nurse's calm a shield cracked by trust. Jaden's, "Mommy, we're okay." A question she answered. "Yes, baby. Always." Her voice a steel she'd forged. The flight a saga ended in cuffs and cash. Her scars a testament to a war she'd won. The racism a beast she'd slain. The Pierce's fall a reckoning she'd forced. Gloria's twist a bitter note in a song she'd sing. Her son her anchor. The nation her witness. Boise a dawn she'd claimed. The end a flip that left her standing, battered but unbroken. The fight a flame that burned forever. Her son a heartbeat she'd never lose again. The betrayal a ghost she'd carry, the victory a truth she'd live, the flight a nightmare she'd buried. Her name a light that outshone the dark. The saga of Tamika Jones on that fateful red-eye flight teaches us raw, unfiltered truths about resilience, systemic bias, and the power of standing tall against injustice. First, Tamika's relentless fight, despite being denied her seat, burned, framed, and firebombed, shows that courage isn't the absence of fear but the refusal to let it win, a lesson for anyone facing overwhelming odds. Her story screams that one voice, amplified by allies like Ryan and Denise, can spark a tidal wave of change, proving collective action can topple even the most entrenched power. Second, the Pierce's vicious escalation. Coffee burns to oxygen. Sabotage to a custody grab. Lays bare how systemic racism twists everyday moments into life-or-death battles. A stark reminder that prejudice isn't just words, but a machine that grinds down lives. Gloria's betrayal, flipping from savior to snake, hammers home the danger of blind trust in a world where motives hide behind masks. Yet, Tamika's triumph, exposing Bradley and Evelyn as fugitives, proves truth can claw its way out, even when buried under lies. Finally, her scars and Jaden's return teach us victory isn't clean. It's a gritty, imperfect survival that demands we keep pushing, no matter the cost. This isn't just a tale of one flight. It's a mirror to our society, urging us to question who gets silenced and why. So what hits you hardest here? How far would you go to protect what's yours against a system stacked against you? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Hit like if Tamika's grit fired you up, subscribe for more raw tales of defiance, and share to spread her story. Thanks for riding this roller coaster with us. Here's to finding strength in the fight and peace in the winds ahead.